two frontmen, one legendary band, and a debate that's divided metalheads for decades. Ozzy Osbourne or Ronnie James Dio? Who was the ultimate voice of Black Sabbath? Imagine this: Birmingham, England, 1969. Four young guys, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and a scrappy kid named Ozzy Osbourne, band together to make music unlike anything the world had ever heard. They weren't just experimenting with sound, they were shaping a revolution. When their self-titled debut dropped in 1970, it felt like the soundtrack to a horror film, full of doom-laden riffs and Ozzy's eerie, hypnotic vocals. It wasn't just music, it was a statement. By the time Paranoid came out later that year, Black Sabbath had already cemented their place as heavy metal pioneers, and at the center of it all was Ozzy, whose raw, unpolished energy made him the perfect voice for Sabbath's groundbreaking sound. But as we all know, not even legends are immune to their own demons. Sabbath's foundation started to show. Ozzy was the face of chaos, not just on stage, but behind the scenes too. The guy partied harder than anyone, and while the rest of the band wasn't exactly sober, Ozzy was in a league of his own. Tony Iommi later admitted that Ozzy's substance abuse had become a serious problem. He stopped showing up to rehearsals, and when he did, he wasn't really there. The rest of the band wanted to push their music in new directions, but Ozzy was stuck, spinning in the same chaotic loop. Eventually, it became clear. Something had to give. In 1979, the unthinkable happened. The band fired Ozzy. Tony described it as one of the hardest decisions they ever made, but he said, "We loved Ozzy, but we couldn't keep going like that. It was him or the band." For a moment, it looked like Black Sabbath might be finished.
But at the end of the day, when it came to a point where we had to replace Ozzy, we were in a bad way, and he was certainly in a bad way, and we had to fire him, which was awful.
Did you do it face to face?
Well, actually, the drummer did it. He told him.
Enter Ronnie James Dio. Let's set the scene. Here's this guy with a voice so powerful, it could probably shatter glass. Dio wasn't just a singer, he was a storyteller. When he joined Sabbath in 1980, the band didn't just survive, they thrived. With Dio, Sabbath's sound took on a whole new vibe. Albums like Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules were packed with soaring operatic vocals and lyrics that felt straight out of a fantasy novel. Children of the Sea, Neon Nights, these weren't just songs, they were epic adventures. Dio gave Sabbath a fresh identity, one that appealed to an entirely new generation of fans. But not everyone was on board. Some diehard Ozzy fans said it wasn't really Sabbath without his eerie, hypnotic voice. Sure, Dio was technically perfect, but could he capture the raw, gritty magic that Ozzy brought to those early albums? That's where the real debate begins. This is where it gets tricky. Ozzy and Dio were like night and day. Ozzy was the wild card, the chaotic frontman who embodied everything raw and unpolished about early Sabbath. His voice wasn't perfect, but it fit. Tracks like Paranoid and War Pigs just wouldn't be the same with anyone else singing them. Then there's Dio. He was the complete opposite, controlled, powerful, and precise. He elevated Sabbath to a whole new level with his vocal range and storytelling abilities. Tracks like Heaven and Hell didn't just rock, they soared. Dio gave Sabbath a new identity, but for some, that identity wasn't Sabbath at all. And let's not forget the personal side of things. While fans fueled much of the rivalry, there was some tension between the two frontmen. Ozzy, ever the wild card, once poked fun at Dio's height, calling him a short man with a big voice. Dio, in turn, implied that Ozzy's style was simplistic compared to his own. But here's the thing. There was never any real hatred between them. Dio himself said, "I don't think there was ever real hatred. People just wanted there to be." And when Dio passed away in 2010, Ozzy showed nothing but respect, calling him a great, great singer. It's clear that whatever rivalry existed, it was more about their musical differences than personal animosity. The truth is, both eras of Sabbath are legendary in their own way. Without Ozzy, there's no Iron Man or Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. But without Dio, there's no Heaven and Hell or Neon Nights. Ozzy brought the chaos, Dio brought the power, and together, they created a legacy that will live on forever. So we're leaving it up to you. Are you Team Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness, the voice of chaos? or Team Dio, the metal messiah, the voice of power? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let the debate rage on.